Ooh, haven't been here in a while. Well, hello again, everybody. It is Katrina. I am Katrina, the advisor, and I am here tonight to share some 2025 tax updates with you. We're in the heart of tax season. A lot of people have questions. I see a lot of good information and misinformation going around online. So I decided to jump here on live tonight just to share some feedback with you all and to give you some actual real updates about what's going on. I know there's a lot of people that are in the holding pattern that have been waiting for their refunds to drop that qualified for certain credits that put you in a holding place, and it's called the Path Tax Act. Say that real fast. It is a tongue twister. But basically, the PATH Tax Act is if you have certain credits like the earned income credit, the additional child tax credit, certain credits that get you refundable credits, money back, they hold those back a little bit because there's historically been a lot of fraud with those. So in order to do double checks and take time to check instead of just issuing out refunds, the IRS gives themselves additional time to go through those tax returns to make sure there aren't duplicates or triplicates and all of those things, or that the kids aren't on multiple returns and all of that kind of thing. So they give themselves a little bit more time to process those returns and make sure that your information is not being used fraudulently. Your kids' information is not being used fraudulently. So in a lot of ways, it's to your benefit, although it can be a headache because if you were waiting on a refund, 9 times out of 10, you've already got things to spend that money on, right? And had things to spend the money on, right? Coming out of the holiday season, jumping right into a new tax year. So I'm going to give you some updates on that. I won't hold up on any longer. So the PATH Tax Act, typically those end about, the IRS gives themselves until usually February 15th to start processing those returns. So they have started processing those returns. And let me share with you what I've gotten from Santa Barbara Tax Bank. A lot of times when you have your refunds come out of your tax return, you'll have your preparer process all of that for you. But that money really doesn't come from your tax firm. That actually comes from a bank. There are several banks that specifically do that for tax refunds. Santa Barbara being one of the bigger ones. And so they share this information because you usually have to have a third party that processes that for you. The preparer cannot do that. We don't get access to your refund. We can't take our money out of your refunds and all of those types of things. It actually has to be a bank that processes that as a third party, right? So I just wanted to share this with you. Look at this. The largest federal funding date this year is arriving. It's going to be February 24th and February 26th of this year, right? So that's next week. So those are the dates that the two biggest refund are going to start dropping. They've started to trickle out today. So there's been a few people that have started to receive them today, but you can expect those refunds to start dropping on Monday and Wednesday of next week. Now, sometimes your bank can take another 24 to 48 hours to process it, but the IRS will start dropping those into those accounts, the direct deposit accounts. Some people that may have gotten like the green dot cards where they didn't have bank accounts and things like that, some of those have started to post now, like some started today on the 19th. And then there'll be some additional ones that post, looks like on the, what dates that say, the 21st. But the biggest two drop dates are going to be the 24th and the 26th. So those are the two dates that you can start looking at for those refunds to drop. I know a lot of people have been like, wait a minute, checking the IRS's website, where's my refund a million times. Hold your horses, it's coming next week, and you may start to get it. You may even get it this week, but I say better safe than sorry. These are going to be the biggest dates. They've alerted these banks that they can expect to have those refunds processing those days. So those are the dates that you should be looking for that path. The PATH Act ended, but these are the date that the refunds are going to start processing out, right? So with that being said, next week is the big day. Let's talk about what you got planned for your refund. Start writing that down, what you've got planned for your refund. If you have any questions, please post them and I'll answer them live while I'm here live. I wanted to go live because I kept saying I was going to record this and it just never got around to it. It's tax season. We're busy. But I did want to share this information with you all. because like I said, the biggest two tax state drop refund dates for that coming out of that PATH Act is going to be next week, the 24th and the 26th. Can they start dropping now? Yes, they've started to trickle out now. I've seen a couple today, but the bigger dates, the larger portion is going to be for next week, right? So you could be in that early batch, but a lot of people are really going to be the majority are going to be next week. Okay. So if you get it early, then bonus. But if you're not, expect it next week. But like I said, let's just talk about what you're going to do with those refunds, right? I know a lot of people are behind on their bills. Things are so expensive now. But make sure that you document and start while you got this time. Start writing out what you got planned for, right? Put some money. If you can pay some things in advance, do that. Like if you can pay your rent a month in advance, do that. But definitely, I know a lot of people need to get out of the hole coming out of the holidays. I've been in this business for a long time, so I know all the stories, and I'm reading the comments in the different tax groups and things like that. So I know a lot of people are in, a little bit of a bind this year because the economy is in a weird space. So, but understanding that, have a plan of action with those refunds. Also, if your refund gets rejected, if your tax return gets rejected, I've had that happen with a few clients now, where your return gets rejected, and it says that that person has already filed a return, or the kid has already been claimed on a return. In prior years, you weren't able to figure out who did it, what happened. You would have to paper file your return, wait for the IRS to do the headbutt challenge to figure out who really should have claimed the kid, who really had the head of household status, and all of those things. So understanding that when that happens, there's a new process that went into effect this year. I'm going to share that on my screen as well. And I'm going to answer your question in just a second, Willie. There's this new form called the Form 4506F. F is in fraud, right? This is the identity theft victims request and for a copy of a fraudulent tax return. You've never been able to get this before. This just went into effect this year, where you can actually request a copy of that return that was sent with your information, so you can do your due diligence to see where it went wrong. And then in the back end of this, so you can mail this in, but the quicker way is to fax it in to the IRS. They'll send you a copy of the return that was submitted on your behalf that shows the fraudulent return. And then on top of that, you would paper file your actual return, but call and let them know that this is what you're doing, right? But this is the process. But you'll paper file your return, send it certified mail, so you get a signature when the IRS gets it, so you can start tracking that timeline, because it's going to take about 8 to 12 weeks, right? I say 8. They say 6 weeks. I say 8 weeks because we're in the heart of tax season, right? And if they're getting a paper return, a person actually has to process that, right? So give yourself a little bit of time, but send it certified mail. That way, when somebody got it, received it, so you can start put the date on the calendar. Like, this is the start date that they've actually received it, so I can start counting from there 8 weeks out, right? Start calling about 6 weeks. Hey, where's up with my refund? But about 8 weeks, you should have that refund to you. That's only if you can't electronically submit your return because somebody has already sent in one on your behalf fraudulently. So in that process, you would send this form in, and then that way you would be able to get that going. So Willie asked, what about the ones who file with no dependents? When should they expect theirs? So typically it's about 7 to 10 business days. Now, even with no dependents, that doesn't mean that you didn't get some of those credits that put you in the same status as people with the dependents. If you had certain credits, sometimes with no dependents, you still qualified based upon your income for the earned income credit. In those instances, then you still fit into that same PATH Tax Act category, right? So just because the dependence the dependence is not the determining factor. The determining factor is the type of credits that you receive. Head of household credit, earned income credit, additional child tax credit, any of those refundable credits that are going to get you money back, then those credits are the ones that have this additional loophole in it, right? So if you qualified even without dependents, then that could be the case that you may be on the hook for that, right? So any other questions? It looks like I might be frozen. Hold on. There I am. Any other questions? I've seen a lot of questions on TikTok and different groups, and that's what prompted me to do this. A couple other things that I know are people have been, I've been getting a lot of feedback on is if you owe certain debts, will they garnish your refund? So typically, if it's an IRS refund, certain only a few people can actually garnish those, right? They would have to have it. But the way that you do that is you call the offset line to see if you have a garnishment pending with them, right? And I have that listed in one of my other videos, that whole process of how you call the offset number. It's an 800 number, just to see if you have any garnishment sitting there. But typically for your IRS federal refund, the only people that typically are going to be able to tap into those is really the IRS. If you have a prior debt with them, they're going to take their money first, right? If you have a student loan lien, then yes, they can take their money. Or if you have a child support lien, they can take that your federal refund. Some people have been worried about unemployment balances and things like that. I haven't heard a lot of that. Mostly those unemployment outstanding items and things like that, they're usually attaching to state refunds. So if you have state refunds, a lot of times, more debtors can attach to your state refunds than your federal refunds. It's a limited number of people that can attach to a federal refund for garnishment. IRS being one primarily, right? IRS, student loans, child support. The state refunds are pretty much open season. If somebody has a judgment against you, they can go after your state refund, right? So if they have a judgment, they can put a lien against your state refund and take that. It's a little bit of lower hanging fruit than trying to get it at the federal level. So those are things to consider. But if you think that you have a debt that could attach to your refund, call the offset line. There's a federal offset line with the IRS, and at your state level, there's also an offset line. You can find out if you have any outstanding debts at your state level. And if you do, what I recommend you doing is just holding off on filing. Still meet those deadlines, but make arrangements to get those liens out of judgment status, right? It's going to be a little bit harder with the IRS, but if you can get those liens out of judgment or garnishment status where they're no longer liens, then there's a possibility that you can get access to your refund, right? The best one being with student loans. If you have a student loan that's in default, get it out of default status before filing, and then file after you get it paid up a couple months, at least 2 months, right? You want a record where it's out of default status, and then that will allow you to get access to your refund, right? Because you're no longer in default. If you're in default on it, then there's a possibility that they can take your refund. Any outstanding questions or anything? I know, don't be shy. I've seen lots of questions zooming around in the internet web. The other thing that I would recommend that we talk about is just making sure that if you are a victim of identity theft at all this year or have been in the past, get an identity protection pin. Or if you end up having a headbutt competition with a non-custodial parent, get an identity pin for your kids as well. So because then that way this eliminates you having to try to race to file every year, and then maybe even not being able to file because you don't have all your tax forms, and then by the time you get all your tax forms, then your return is rejected because somebody already beat you to the punch. That sucks when you're actually the one providing and the one that is actually qualified to receive the credits, right? So make sure you stay on top of that. If you need to get an identity protection pin, it's a lot easier than before. Before, when you got the pin, you had to wait for it to come in the mail. And if you lost it, you had to wait for a new one to come out in the mail. Not so much. The IRS has stepped their game up. You can download it online now, right? So you can access it online. So if you don't receive it in the mail, you can log into your IRS account. You all have one, whether you've logged into it or not. I do recommend you setting it up. And then logging into that and making sure that you download your identity protection pin. And that will help you not have a block every year where somebody's filing you or fraudulently claiming you or your kids. I hope this has been good information for you. Tell me in the chats if you have any questions or any videos that you'd love for me to do, and questions that you have that you would like for me to answer. And I will see you on the next go round. If you'd like to book a chat with me, my link is in the bio to book a discovery call. I look forward to talking to you, and happy tax filing season. Bye, everybody.